Hey everyone, welcome back to another video, and if you're new here, welcome to the channel. As with many of my videos, this is another viewer request, and it comes from Jake Brogan. Thank you for the suggestion. So this idea stems from my very first video about making Fallout 4 Immersive for Xbox One. In that video, it was essentially made for a winter survival playthrough, but in this one, since it's summer, we're going to try our best to make Fallout 4 an immersive summer survival game. All mods featured will be in the video description below, in order with links and timestamps so you can easily find them. This video will be for Xbox One because there weren't enough of these mods available for PS4 to say this could be for PlayStation, so I apologize to the PS4 players who might be watching. Additionally, if you think of any mods that you felt should have been in the video, just let me know in the comments so I can add them to the list. And as always, credit you for your addition. Just know that some of these mods might require DLC, but that said, let's begin. So getting into it, we're first going to create our environment. Another green mod with LOD will be the mod we're going to use. This mod is so good. The colors look nice, the trees look good, the grass looks good, the draw distance is amazing, the performance is very good with hardly any FPS drop even in Boston, and I also haven't experienced any crashes yet. Everything about this mod is great, except for two things. Number one, the file size. It's massive. The non-DLC version will run you 702 megabytes, and the DLC version will run you 970, so that is definitely something to consider, but I personally think it's worth it. But there are other options out there if you don't feel like spending the 700 plus megabytes. In fact, I made 2 entire videos comparing nearly every green mod out there, so if you're considering other options, I recommend watching those videos. I will link them in the description. The other drawback to this is that sometimes the grass can glitch out looking like this. I believe this is due to your console catching textures. The 2 ways to fix this are either hard reset your Xbox, when you load back in it will go away, or the other option is to use the mod reduced grass density. The way that mod works is by removing nearly all the grass from the game, so therefore it's impossible for the glitching to happen since there's no grass, but you do lose out on some immersion when there's no grass though. Sorry to ramble a bit on this, but I feel it's important to point out the quirks when necessary so you guys don't run into any unexpected issues. Next is realistic roads. You'll notice that there are 2 versions of this mod, but it won't matter which one you choose because they're actually both the same, at least currently. But just for your information, one is the faded version and one is the black asphalt version. But like I said, they're both the same, and the version that they both are from what I understand is the black asphalt version. I love how the darkness of the road contrasts with the green from AGM. It really makes the green pop and gives us such a unique environment. I know the double yellow line in the middle of the road might get some people saying things like, there's no way the paint would still be there after so many years, but hey, I actually think it looks good, but to each their own. Overall, I think this is a great addition to AGM. Up next is Visible Galaxy 4K. I like this mod because it provides us with a really nice, high quality night sky. It almost looks like we're on top of a mountain and really gives us the feeling of a clear summer night. A mod that I like to use with this is Moon, which greatly enhances the textures of the moon and complements our new night sky nicely. In the end, I think these 2 mods work very well with the summer environment we've so far created. For our weather, we are going to use True Storms. This mod is quite popular, but for those of you who don't know what it does, it essentially overhauls the storm system in Fallout 4. It adds new unique weathers, new and better sounds, better weather textures, interior sounds that reflect the weather happening outside, and much, much more. This mod concludes creating our summer environment, and at this point, Fallout 4 should look like a brand new game already. Okay, so let's get into immersion mods. So realistic sound is up first. Basically what this mod does is add additional reverb to the many sounds in the game. So for example, you will notice a better gunshot echo. The author also says that sound bounces off objects better and more realistically. The mod also lets you adjust the amount of reverb in-game in the audio settings. Overall, I really enjoy what this mod adds, and I recommend this for extra immersion. Second is Rain of Brass. This is a tiny mod that really makes you appreciate the small details. Basically, all it does is make it so that any gun that shoots bullets or shells will leave the casings on the ground after being shot and won't disappear for an hour or until you leave the area. It's cool because after a gunfight when you're looting the scene, all of the shells and casings will still be on the ground, and to me this makes the game much more realistic. Weapon Drop Standalone is next. This is a mod that I covered in my very first video and has been a permanent install on my load order for a very long time now. What it does is add a lowering of your gun function to the game. In most cases, the mod will automatically do this for you when you're talking to people so you're not aiming at their face with your gun like in the vanilla game, which isn't very realistic. And if there's a time when you want your weapon lowered and it's not already lowered for you, you can just hold X and it will toggle it manually. Coming up next is Realistic Ragdoll Force. This is another one that I covered in my first video as well. Actually, there are a few more in here that I covered in that video, so I'll stop saying that, but for those of you who have seen the video, I apologize if I sound a little repetitive. All this mod does is rework the physics of people you kill, so when they die, they won't fly like 40 feet in the air like they sometimes do in the vanilla game, so now they'll just slump over. Though it is funny when you shoot someone and they jettison to unreachable locations, it's just not very realistic, and this mod will fix that. Next up is Dismemberment Overhaul. I love this mod. It makes it so that you can, as the name tells us, dismember enemies. It's cool because let's say you shoot someone in the arm that's holding their weapon and the arm gets blown off. The guy will lose the weapon and run around with one arm trying to get away from you. Or if you happen to take someone's leg off, the enemy will fall to the ground and be unable to get back up, and even still shoot at you if they have a gun. I've been using this mod for a while now, and I think it highly improves combat. Smoother Sun Shadow is next. This is a small detail mod that is pretty self-explanatory, but it's well done in one of the many permanent installs on my console. What it does is simple. It makes it so that shadows move smoothly instead of shifting abruptly. You can clearly tell here that the difference is very noticeable. This mod is definitely recommended for this, and I also recommend recommend just keeping it installed. It's that good. Up next is critical hits outside of VATS. This one is pretty self-explanatory as well. It just enables you to score critical hits while not in VATS. It also tweaks some perks, chems, and other parts of the game to seamlessly integrate the critical hits outside of VATS. There will also be an indicator in the top left corner of your screen telling if you scored a critical hit. Overall, I like this mod and I think it's a nice addition to the game. Next is Give Me My Bottle Back. This is a must-have when playing survival because in the vanilla game, there is this super unimmersive feature that when you fill a bottle up with water and drink it, the bottle you just used to fill the water up with goes away. I don't know why they made it this way, but this mod fixes that and lets you reuse the same bottles as many times as you want. Just know that no matter what bottle you use to fill the water up with, when you drink it, it will go back into your inventory as an empty Nuka-Cola bottle. It's obviously not a big deal, but that's just how it works. Next up is more Radstags. This mod is pretty small, but I think it does a good job of reflecting summer because it adds more Radstags to the environment, which makes sense to me considering the weather in summer is nicer, which in theory would mean more wildlife should be out. Enhanced blood textures is next, and it's a mod that greatly improves the blood in Fallout. In the vanilla game, the blood effects just weren't as good as they could have been. Like as you can tell from this clip, when you shoot someone in the head, barely any blood comes out and it doesn't really even show up on the ground. But with this mod active, it completely changes that. It looks so much better and greatly improves the immersion. A good follow-up to the last mod is realistic headshots. Basically what this mod does is make it so that headshots are more lethal. In fact, 20 times more lethal, which makes it so that most things will die in one shot to the head, including you. It actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it, and if you use mods that make ammo harder to come by, it really seems to play well because now enemies aren't bullet sponges, and you don't have to waste that precious ammo unloading an entire magazine into their face. Next up is Realistic Insects Health. This mod makes bugs easier to kill, which makes sense considering insects shouldn't be very durable. This mod divides insect health by 50%, so only a few bullets are needed to take them out, which in my opinion is the way it should be. As a follow-up to that mod, no Radscorpion Tunneling is next. All this does is make it so that Radscorpions can't tunnel underground, because honestly, it never really made sense to me. Now they have to reach you by walking. I personally like using this mod, but it's up to you. Some people might not mind the tunneling as much. Next is Craftable Ammunition. This adds a reloading workbench to the building menu at your settlements. It's supposed to make crafting ammo like it was in New Vegas, which is a part of that game I really liked, and I think Fallout 4 really missed out on it. This mod brings that back. I like the idea of being able to craft your own ammo. Something about it just seems realistic to me. There are a few other ammo crafting mods out there, so if you think this one is a little too convoluted, mods like Balanced Craftable Ammunition are much easier to use. I will link that in the description along with this one if you want to check it out. Armorsmith is next. This mod is really cool because it enables you to wear any armor over any clothing, and also lets you add ballistic weave to any piece of clothing as well. This mod also adds new craftable outfits to the game, gloves, Dogmeat armors, lets you rename clothing, and much more. This is a great mod that really lets you customize how your character looks. Just expect there to be some clipping issues sometimes, but other than that, this mod is well done and a great addition to the game. Just understand that this one requires a version of Armor and Weapons Keywords community resource. I will link that mod in the description under this one so you know what one to use. The file size for this is pretty big, so I will link another mod that does something similar to it but for a fraction of the space. Though it isn't as comprehensive as Armorsmith, it will still let you wear armor on top of clothing. Next are a few backpack mods. I feel backpacks are very important to survival games. There's just something about throwing a backpack on and heading out into the unknown that really captures the essence of survival. So first I have Backpacks of the Commonwealth. This is an amazing mod that adds 15 unique backpacks to the game, all with custom stats. There's over 50 workbench mods, 40 selectable colors, and a new location to explore and more. The best part is that it's fully integrated with the leveled lists with NPCs, containers, and vendors, so as you progress through the game, you'll find new backpacks. The second backpack mod is TravelBag. This is a quality mod that adds a craftable backpack to your chem station. You can add some things to it as well, like a hanging gas mask, knife, sledgehammer, or water bottles to enhance the look of it. I really like the way this bag looks. The last backpack mod is PrevisionerBackPack. This one is cool because the file size is ridiculously small at 982 kilobytes. In my opinion, it doesn't look quite as good as the other ones, but it's certainly not bad by any means. Overall, it's a great addition for variety. This one is also craftable at your chem station. Next up is Minuteman Watchtowers. This mod so far adds 9 watchtowers to the Commonwealth. I like this because I think it goes well with there being more trees around, and I like the way the deserted watchtowers look with this type of environment, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, each tower has its own map marker, so you can fast travel to them after discovering them. That is if you're not playing on survival mode, or if you have fast travel turned on, which we'll get into later in the video. There are also beds and boxes to loot there as well. This mod isn't essential by any means, but I think it adds some variety to the game. Full dialogue interface is up next. I've gone over this one in the past, but I really believe it's an essential mod for any playthrough. Like I said, I'm sorry if I sound a little repetitive to those who are regulars here, but for those who don't know about this one, all it does is bring back the ability to read all of what you're about to say to someone rather than just getting a word or two like in the vanilla game. Now you can fully read all of your options. Time Timestopping VATS is next. What this one does is bring VATS back to what it used to be, which is totally stopping time. Now you can take time choosing where to shoot instead of being rushed by slow motion. Like I've said in the past, the only quirk to this is that sometimes the enemies will slide after you hit VATS, but they don't hit you or anything. Other than that, this mod works extremely well. I highly recommend this mod for any playthrough. Up next is Gone Fishin'. This is a pretty sweet mod that lets you fish in Fallout 4. It allows you to craft a fishing rod at your chem station, then make fishing bait at a campfire. Once you do that, you can wield the fishing rod, then press the right trigger to cast into any body of water. You don't get to reel the fish in or anything, they just appear in your inventory by telling you what you caught in the top left corner, but you'll be able to catch bluegill, trout, pike, salmon, and more. You'll even reel up junk once in a while as well. Summer and fishing just go very well together, so I think this is a great mod to add to this playthrough. Simple Wasteland Camping is next. This mod is super cool because I feel like this was something that Fallout 4 missed out on. It really makes sense to be able to carry a sleeping bag around and be able to sleep wherever and whenever you want. But that's not all this mod adds though. This mod lets you set up an entire campsite, tents, chairs, fire, sleeping bag, and more. You can even cook food on the fire too, which is pretty cool. Perhaps cook some of that fish you caught with that last mod we just discussed. When I use this mod, I only carry around the sleeping bag, cooking pot, and fire setup because it feels more realistic to me. But by all means, carry the entire campsite with you if you want. And the best part is you can just pick it all back up, except for the fire, and keep moving. Realistic bullets is our next mod. It makes it so that gravity and distance affects the bullet's trajectory. As you can see, I'm clearly shooting a little above the head here and I'm still hitting my target. In the vanilla game, which you could see here, I shoot more or less in the same spot above the head and I do not hit my target. This mod definitely works. It's cool because of how realistic it is, though it might be a little frustrating at times. But I think if you're going for a super immersive playthrough, I think this is a good mod to add. Coming up next is Makeshift Homes. This mod adds 5 new hideouts to the Commonwealth, each with their own map marker. The hideouts are super well done, especially this Red Rocket gas station. Look familiar? I will show you 2 of the hideouts, but I will leave the rest for you to discover. I like what these hideouts add to the game. They seem realistic to me, like maybe they were used by someone in the past who went out for something but never returned. Then you happen to stumble upon it and claim it for yourself. There are things to loot inside too, as well as various workstations and a bed for you to use. Up next is NPCs Travel. The reason we're adding this in is because it seems more realistic to have more NPCs roaming the Commonwealth, especially in the summer. The mod adds hundreds of new NPCs to the game that travel to hundreds of places. You can trade with them, ignore them, or kill them if you want to. It's a nice mod and I recommend it if you want more variety. So up next, I have some dog meat mods. They're definitely optional because not all of us like to roam with the dog, but if you do, these mods might interest you. First is Dogmeats Backpack. This mod adds some cool backpacks that you can craft for Dogmeat as well as some interesting collars. There are a few other Dogmeat backpack mods out there, but I personally like this one the most. Second is Dogmeat Boots, which lets you craft boots for him. Third is Dogmeat Helmets&Hats that allows you to craft hats and stuff for him. And fourth is Stealthmeat, which makes it so that Dogmeat doesn't break you out of stealth when you're sneaking around. I like these mods. I think it adds more of that variety that I keep mentioning. And plus, I think it makes sense to be able to put equipment on a well-trained dog that roams a post-apocalyptic wasteland with you. So before we get into guns, I want to go over some mods that change how the game is played in terms of difficulty, and also a couple mods that let you tweak some survival settings to your own liking. So first is survival options. This is a cool mod because it lets you tweak survival mode pretty much any way you want. You can enable fast travel, which is what I was getting at earlier when I was talking about watchtowers. You can tweak incoming and outgoing damage, and other things like hunger, thirst, or fatigue. Usually what I end up tweaking is making it so that all beds give me the same amount of rest. I'll usually play on 3 times damage and enable fast travel, but it's up to you if you even want to mess with any of the settings. Next is Survival Quick Save. This mod simply adds a quick save option to the aid section of your Pip-Boy. All you need to do is click on it and it will quick save your game. Survival Options has something like this too, but this is a good alternative if you're not using that. Now you no longer have to sleep to save, which never really made sense to me. I understand making survival mode difficult, but there's a line between making something hard and annoying, and I think disabling saves was just annoying. But that's just me. Up next is Snipers of the Commonwealth. This mod is interesting. It adds some enemy snipers to the game that will shoot at you if they see you, and usually they're on top of buildings. This one is your call because if you're playing on a high damage setting, this might be a little aggravating because you might just get picked off out of nowhere. But this mod definitely makes you think twice about just romping around the wasteland without scanning the area with a nice pair of binoculars first, which is another mod that I will briefly show you. This mod adds a set of high quality, customizable binoculars to the game that you can use to identify faraway NPCs. This is a good mod to use if you're playing with Snipers of the Commonwealth, or just in general as well. You can add night vision, different zoom amounts, and more to craft exactly what you want. Next up is Ballistic Realism Overhaul 2. I can't really explain the entirety of this mod without spending too much time, but basically what it does is make it so that gun damage is extremely high and more realistic. It tweaks the loot system, factions, armor, weights of things, and more. It makes the game harder for sure. This is something to look into if you're looking for a challenge. Same thing with mods like Immersive Gameplay or War Never Changes. These mods overhaul the game in ways I can't explain right now without taking far too long, but they're all gameplay changes that make the game much harder. I just wanted to point those out, kind of just for an FYI thing, but I do plan to do a video in the future about those kinds of mods and actually spend time talking about them and what they do. So for guns, like I normally do, I will show a few here, but mostly just list them because there are far too many for me to showcase and talk about, and ultimately, you know, what guns you decide to use is really up to you, but what I've been using for this are Colt Python, MP40, the Holy Machete, Modular Kalash, 38 Revolver, Glock P80, HK USP 45, FN57, Hunting Shotgun, and a Grenade Expansion Pack, which is pretty cool because it adds 40 different types of grenades to the game. So real quick before we end the video, if you're experiencing any FPS issues, like I always recommend, try out Reduced Grass Density or Disable God Rays and Disable Lens Flare. Those might help get those frames back up to normal. And as far as clothing for your character goes, I've been using assorted gloves from Armorsmith, the flannel shirt and jeans outfit, green shirt and combat boots, gray shirt and combat boots, or undershirt and jeans. Then on top of it, I'll add a backpack from Backpacks of the Commonwealth. Those seem to work pretty well with summer, but again, like guns, it's totally up to you what you put on your character. Alright, so that will do it for creating an immersive summer survival playthrough on Xbox One. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like as is the easiest way to show support. And if you're not already, be sure to subscribe for more content just like this. But before the video ends, I just want to say that this week the channel hit over 400 subscribers and over 30,000 video views. So I just want to take some time here to thank you all for the continued support. As always, if you guys have any ideas for future videos, just let me know in the comment section and we'll try to make it happen. And of course, credit you for the idea in the video. See you next time. Thanks for watching.